Welcome to another episode of Compassionate Coexistence, a podcast to help you cultivate connection and honor Earth. I'm Lex Sylvie, your fellow traveler on this journey toward hope, healing, and harmony for all beings. Today we have an episode regarding the project's pillar of honoring the rights of all beings. I have to share some context for how this interview came about that may be difficult for some listeners to hear. But the contrast really shows the difference that the choice between compassion and what I'll call convenience killing can make. One day when I was working as a reporter for an animal protection agency, I received an email from a distressed animal advocate alleging that a Texas state park was shooting stray cats to death despite offers to help rehome them. A public records request revealed that the park's official management plan was to destroy the cats with .22 caliber bullets, and that the park had shot to death 16 cats, without noting any evidence that those cats were sick, injured, aggressive, or had a proven history of harming the park's wildlife. I'll put more information about that situation into the show notes for those of you who would like to learn more. I thought that there had to be a more humane way to handle feral cats, and my search ended up introducing me to the Lanai Cat Sanctuary in Hawaii. It's important to note here that the stakes for Lanai are high. The remote island is home to many species of endangered birds whose adults and chicks can easily become prey to hunting felines. Hawaii's temperate climate and lack of predators also makes it very easy for cats to breed and thrive year-round. But rather than resort to killing, a group of people banded together, rounded up the cats, and moved them to what's now an enclosed paradise where they are free to spend their days lounging around, receiving proper food and veterinary care, and, just maybe, catching the eyes and the hearts of adopters. The 3.5-acre sanctuary is home to more than 600 cats, about 40% of whom typically are sociable enough to be considered adoptable. The remaining 60% are guaranteed a lifetime of care at the sanctuary as valued permanent residents. Our guide today is Keone Vaughn, the sanctuary's executive director, who joins us to talk about the choice to find a humane solution for Lanai's cats and birds, why he believes compassionate coexistence is the way forward, and how you can support the sanctuary's work. Keone, thank you so much for being here with us today. Can you start by telling us a little bit about the situation in Hawaii before the sanctuary and everything that you were facing?
I think, first of all, the cat overpopulation in general is a national issue. And, there's cats everywhere. And that's partly because they reproduce at such an alarming rate. So a female cat, once the female cat reaches about 6 months old, can have 2 to 3 litters per year, with 2 to 3 kittens per litter. So that offspring, once it reaches 6 months, they're breeding again, right? So in Hawaii, and specifically on Lanai, it's such a remote area. The weather is good year round. There's no winter die-off, if you will, because of the weather, right? Snow or anything like that. We don't have any predators like coyotes. Okay. There's only 3,000 people on the entire island. So, you don't get a lot of, there's no opportunity to really slow down the reproduction of the cats, right? So Kathy Carroll is the founder of the sanctuary, and she was originally from Illinois. Came here on a vacation with her husband and absolutely fell in love with the place. So she sold her place in Illinois and relocated to Lanai. And a little kitten stumbled across her doorstep, and the kitten was sick, and she didn't know what to do. She was an cat lover, animal lover, but didn't have any kind of experience or anything. And so she started asking around town, where's the veterinarian? And everybody kind of laughed and chuckled and said, there's no veterinarian on the island. Wow. She's like, well, what are we going to have to do? How do I get this cat some help? I said, well, then you jump in your car, you drive a half hour down to the harbor, you jump on the ferry, take a 45-minute ride to Maui, then you rent a car, and then you go and find the nearest veterinarian on Maui. Wow. And so she said, okay. So she went and did it. And The cat ended up being fine. She still has the cat till today.
Oh.
Yeah, but funny part about it is she was, talking to the veterinarian in Maui, and she's like, this was quite a trek to get an animal some help. And the veterinarian said, there's a lot of cats on Lanai, and there's no veterinarian there. I wish somebody would do something about it because cats breed at an alarming rate.
Yeah.
There's no humane society here. There's nothing, right? So Kathy, unlike most people, looked in the mirror and said, well, why don't I try to do something about it? It's like on her own accord. It was pretty incredible. So she rallied a few women to volunteer, and she recruited that veterinarian, and they did trap, neuter, and return for, I want to say, a little under 2 years. And it was going well. Again, trying to minimize the population growth. And then the conservationists stumbled across one of the world's largest colonies of petrels. And these are native endangered birds that are ground nesters. They come back to the same nest every year and lay one egg.
Okay.
And the cats were predating on these precious birds. And so the conservation is like, look, we're going to do, and most people around the country don't realize this, but conservation's primary role is conservation, right? And protecting the native and endangered species. Mm-hmm. And the way they do that for cats, because cats are considered a predator, they trap these cats in humane traps, and they 9 times out of 10 will shoot them in the trap. It's a acceptable form of euthanasia, okay, if done properly and by licensed people, whatever. A lot of people don't realize, right? I mean, that's what conservation does, and most of it, I think, in their opinion, is practical, right? They if done properly, it's quick, it's supposedly painless, whatever. So the conservationists said, look, we got to do this, and so Kathy said, oh my God, I'm doing all this work and I don't want these cats to be shot. Let me try to relocate them. Will you give me 30 days to relocate these cats? Not knowing how many there are, just, trying to rescue these cats. And so they said, sure, no problem. We'll give you 30 days. Well, she managed to broker a deal with the Four Seasons back then, and to loan her a horse corral. And she got a bunch of deer netting, this plastic netting, and enclosed in a makeshift way, enclosed this big horse corral, and relocated about 25 cats. And so, started to care for the cats, obviously spayed or neutered them, but we're caring for the cats. So what she didn't realize, more cats showed up at this place. And so she's like, oh, this might be a bigger issue. And so within a year, she had up to 100 cats that she had trapped and relocated to this horse corral. And obviously we're outgrowing this horse corral really fast. And I don't want to speak for her, but she's probably getting to the point where, hey, maybe this is going to be an ongoing thing, right? Cats will always come around their food source. And so if the birds are the food source, because these are really, really remote areas. And these cats that she's trapping are truly feral cats. And for me personally, I hate labels on cats. I think cats get a bad rep just based on labels. Sure. People make up names for cats to make it a little bit better for cats. But in the end, does it really? I could go on for hours on that topic. But essentially, these cats are truly feral, meaning they were born in the wild and have never seen a human until our intervention. Okay. These are not community cats roaming, from house to house or in the neighborhood park, right? Okay. So she brokered this deal in the middle of nowhere, down by the airport, far away from town, on a 4-acre lot, and it was like a former illegal dump site. And so she got it, and she raised about $10,000 and built a fence and put 100 cats in there.
Wow.
And so she started, formed a nonprofit, started trying to raise money, and while all the meantime she was trapping cats and bringing them into the sanctuary. And that was from about 2009 is when we got the first the big lot. Um, and then she did that from 2009 to about January of 2014 is when I came on board.
Okay.
And at that time, there were 350 cats when I came on. 350 cats with 3 staff.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, wow. No electricity, no. The only thing they had was running water.
So like, what is a typical day like now? Because I think when I was reading on your website, y'all are up to like 600 plus cats now, aren't you?
Yeah. So we're up to 600 today. We have 665. We have 12 staff, combination of part-time and full-time. We are very proud that as of July, Hawaii is a very expensive place to live. There's an old saying, you have to pay the price to live in paradise. And on the island of Lanai, like I said, only 3,000 people. It's hard to keep people here, right? I mean, the cost of living is very expensive here. A lot of people will move off island for better jobs, what have you. But aside from that, we made a really conscious decision to really take care of our staff. And what I mean by that is we feel if we take care of our staff, they're going to take care of our cats. And so as of July, our starting wage is $20 an hour. In addition to that, so everybody will make at least $20 an hour. And in addition to that, they get full medical, dental, and vision insurance. They get 10 days sick leave, 10 days vacation, and 13 holidays a year, and a 401k plan. We adopt out about 100 cats a year. We bring in about 200 a year, strictly from Lanai. So just because we're the only animal rescue group on the island. So as of this point, we're not bringing in any new or any cats from other areas.
Okay.
And 95% of our cats are adopted off island and out of state.
Okay.
It's pretty incredible. No cat is shot on Lanai. So all the conservation. So we are, I don't know if you're familiar with different terms, but one thing that's very common in animal welfare is open admission shelters and limited admission shelters, right? And basically, open admission shelters are more so your animal control, your humane societies that have animal control contracts, where people, they don't really control the flow of how many animals come in, right, to their humane society. Sanctuaries or rescue groups, by and large, are limited admission shelters. So they get to control, because it's their choice, they get to control what animals they take in.
Okay.
So based on their resources, right? So some sanctuaries or some rescue groups will say, well, we will only take in healthy cats because that's all we can afford. We can't afford a cat who needs a $3,000 surgery or whatnot. So unfortunately, because they're limited, then those cats, for example, will have to go to the local shelter, right?
Okay.
So coming from my background has been I've been in animal welfare over 20 years. The last eight and a half of it were at the sanctuary. Prior to that, I came from Hawaii's largest open admission shelter, the Humane Society, when we had the animal control contract and whatnot. Well, Lanai Cat Sanctuary, because we are the only animal group on the island, like I said, there's no Humane Society, no animal control. We are an open admission sanctuary.
Okay.
That I don't know of any other sanctuary in the country that can say that.
I don't either.
A lot of it is probably because of our dynamics, right, and where we are and our human population and whatnot. But what I basically mean by that is we will never turn away any cat from Lanai for any reason.
Okay.
And that's a pretty big statement for us. Nor will we take in more than we can properly care for. But we do have the resources to be able to take in all these cats. With our care, that we're providing for these cats. You know, a cat in Hawaii, excuse me, a feral cat in Hawaii, life expectancy is probably around the 3 to 5 year mark. But we're doubling and tripling those lifespans once they get to us.
Wow.
So these cats are coming at us. A lot of them are coming at us. I wouldn't say death's doors, but they're in pretty poor shape. And so we spend a lot of time rehabilitating these cats, and then in turn they're living a lot longer, which makes it a lot more expensive, but it's worth it.
Yeah, no, I think I was reading too, and you mentioned like I also don't like the labels, but I understand like using feral for the fact that these are not house cats that were then neglected or abused and came to a shelter. They're difficult, and I think I was reading on your website that many of them will spend the entirety of their lives at the sanctuary just because they don't.
It's about 60%.
60%.
So here's the thing. So again, with my background at the shelter, with the shelter world, when I first started at the cat sanctuary, I had a different perspective. I was like, once a feral cat, always a feral cat. There's no way in hell you're going to be able to tame a feral cat enough for it to be adopted into a loving home. Couldn't be further from the truth. So through my experience and through the luxury of space and time, we found that about 40% of these cats that we're bringing in, these truly feral cats, through time become adoptable.
Wow.
It's incredible. 60% are going to be feral. They're going to hide in the bushes until the people go home, and they're going to come out and they're going to be happy, but they're never going to be affectionate towards humans.
Sure.
So we have about 16,000 pre-COVID, 16,000 people visit us a year from all over the world. And so when people come at about 10 o'clock in the morning when we open, there's a greeting committee of maybe, I don't know, depending on the day, 60 to 80 cats that actually meet the guests at the front gate, sit there, wait patiently for the guests to arrive. It's pretty incredible. The cats could care less about the staff, right? They see the staff day in, day out. Well, they know when the tourists arrive, we give out pre-stuffed sandwich baggies, Ziploc sandwich baggies, really small ones, of cat treats.
Oh, nice.
And so that the guests can interact with the cats and the cats get, some attention. That's actually it's a win-win for the guest experience. But what we're doing is we're trying to train these cats to become more socialized. And so over time, these cats that are in the bushes that are actually looking at their friends being fed by these amazing cat treats by these humans, they start trickling in and starting to be a part of that welcoming committee. And next thing you know, they're up in guest laps and they're getting pet and all that. It's pretty incredible to see. Wow. And that's probably one of the most rewarding things for my staff to experience is seeing this, I hate to use the word psycho, but this really fractious cat come in where you could not even come near them. So next thing you know, they're in someone's lap and they're getting adopted and going home. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because, I can only imagine that it's incredibly expensive to not only have, 60% of the cats there long term, but also when they come to you with such medical conditions and things that, some agency, why are you doing this? Like, why don't you euthanize them, or why don't you turn them away? Like, why do you feel like this is the solution?
It gets pretty, there's a deep meaning. So one, I'm part Hawaiian. So I believe that we created this problem in Hawaii by being irresponsible humans and letting out cats that were, not fixed, not spayed or neutered. And it's not the bird's fault, it's not the cat's fault, but it's our duty, if we can, to try to do something about it. I came to Lanai, I saw where the birds were ground nesting, went on a little bit of a hike, saw over 700 nests on the ground, and I saw the shearwaters in these nests, these little fledglings in the nest, and I said, my God, this is a buffet for cats. And so I thought, if there's any place on the country where we could potentially solve an issue or come close to solving an issue, it'd be on an island that only has 3,000 people, an island that did not even, or pets were not even technically allowed until the mid 90s. Okay. And I can tell you why after. And it was more of a controlled environment. And what a great message and a great way to try to bridge that gap, if nowhere else on this island, where birds and cats can be protected. And so I gave them my big job, having 71 staff reporting to me, having electricity, internet, and office, all the luxuries of a normal job. I gave it up to come to work here on Lanai. And like I said, there was just a fence, 3 staff, some water running, and 350 cats.
Wow. I was reading on the website, you had a little section about keeping the faith. And how, at the beginning, it seemed like there were people who told you this is not sustainable, this is not going to work. And you kept pushing on. And that was really touching to me. And I wanted to give you a chance to speak to that, like, as you were going through, like, the conversations with the local people there, or the expansions and, challenges that you might not have foreseen arose. Like, how did you keep the faith and just, keep the belief that this vision could become true?
I think 2 things. I think 3 things. One, I feel like we owe it to the cats and the birds. I feel really passionate about that. Because it's so much easier to say you can't do something, right? I mean, that's to me an easy way out. Why not? Why can't we? Is my question, right? And it was hard. I mean, in the beginning, when we don't have resources here, right? You don't call a plumber, for example, and there's no plumber to call to come and fix a leak. And that was not my trade. So guess what we had to do? I had to go to where there was a phone signal, and I had to look it up on YouTube on how to fix a pipe. Okay. It was really at that level. And I mean, everything you can think of, we had to figure out on our own. There's no manual on how to build a cat sanctuary, right?
Okay.
And then we have to import all the materials from another island. I mean, so the cost factor alone is like 30-40% more than what you would do on any other island.
Okay.
And then I didn't have a veterinarian or vet techs. So then now we had to fly, and now we're doing it. We're flying in a veterinary team every single week.
Okay.
To tend to these cats, right? And we spay neuter them. We do full mouth extractions. We do extensive surgeries on the cats that need it. In addition to that, I had the one thing going on, in my head with the cats. And then I also, in the back of my mind, I'm like, my God, there's no humane society here. There's no spay neutering here. There's no veterinary care here for owned animals. And so part of the deal that I made with the veterinarian, who I knew for many years, that I brought over from Oahu, he flies back and forth. We have a spay neuter vehicle on island that was donated to us back in 2013. It's a full vehicle. There's digital X-ray, there's 2 anesthesia machines, so you can do full surgeries, everything. So it's a rolling clinic. So I said, hey, look, if you come and help out the cats, I'll loan you out this vehicle, and then you can do your own, private vet care for the island. So then the people don't have to do what Kathy did back in 2009, which was, jump on the ferry and rent a car and all that. We'll have the vet care here for owned animals. In exchange, I just ask that you do not charge the people for any spay neutering. So year round, as long as you're a resident of the island and you have a dog, cat, or rabbit, we will microchip your pet and we will spay or neuter your pet for free.
Wow.
So that helps keep the animal population down too.
Sure.
So I don't know if I answered your question, but
no, you did. You said there were 3 reasons though, and you said the first one was that we owe it to the cats and to the birds. And then, which is reason enough, but I don't know if you wanted to share the other 2 or if that was.
So my other one was my wife, honestly. the times where I really wanted to kind of throw up my hands and give up because it was just too difficult and too frustrating. She said, stick it out. You made a commitment, stick it out. And so, and then the last one I think was the staff itself.
Okay.
I mean, the staff really, like I said, I've been in animal welfare a long time, but these were really, really passionate people that were well balanced and really cared about the mission. And so I just felt obligated to do the best I can.
Okay.
And so that's what happened. And so I didn't give up. And I'm also very stubborn. So when all my colleagues were telling me, what are you doing? You can't do this. This is not going to work. And that just fueled the fire, if you will.
Sure.
So I had to step back and I had to say, okay, as far as funding and fundraising and all that, right? Because it's one thing to run a cat sanctuary. It's another thing to do it really well, to make sure that the cats get top of the line care. And then it's another thing to figure out how the heck am I going to afford all of this? And so we rebranded the cat sanctuary back in 2015 from Lanai Animal Rescue Center, is what Kathy called it first, to Lanai Cat Sanctuary. And then I had prior to the animal welfare career, I was in the travel industry on Oahu. And so I said to myself, how many people, I'm a huge animal lover, but how many people on their vacations go seek out the local shelter and go hang out at the local shelter? Not many. There's a few crazy people like us, but not many, not in the masses, right? And so from the island's perspective, the residents, they weren't donating, they weren't volunteering. I get a few volunteers. Even today, I get maybe 3 to 5 volunteers a year from the island. And I might get $10,000 donated from the whole island for the whole year.
Wow.
So while the community supports what we do and appreciates what we do, it's not backed by donations or volunteerism. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. So what I had to do is I had to step back, like I said, and say, all right, nobody goes, the vast majority of the tourists do not go seek out their local shelter, whatever in state they're visiting. So let's make this a fun and quirky place to visit first.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we get them through the door, then we'll educate them about what we do.
Okay.
So some people, I don't know how many people, that's just the model that I created, but I don't know how many people would come to us if they knew that we were saving cats and protecting birds first.
Yeah.
Right? Versus, oh, look at this fun, quirky place. We can go play with 600 cats.
Yeah.
And so that's why if you look at my website and whatnot, which I designed, it was trying to have that really fun, borderline cheesy tourist vibe. And so we did that. We flipped it. And we went, when I first started, we were lucky to get, I think, 500 visitors a year.
Okay.
And now we have, 16,000 pre-COVID. And so it's come a long way. We don't charge admission. I'm totally opposed to charging an admission, and there's a reason. Like I said, 40% of our cats are friendly, 60% of them are feral. We care about the ferals just as much as the friendly. So we are very cautious. While we're open 7 days a week, we close at 3:00 every day for a reason, right? Cats are nocturnal, right? So we want, and we feel the cats need, the feral cats especially, need time to themselves. So if we stayed up, if we're open from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m., there's not a lot of time for these ferals to hang out and just relax and be who they are. And so we close at 3:00. All our staff are gone by 3:30. So the cats are totally by themselves until the next morning. And the next morning we have one guy that comes in at like 5 a.m.
Okay.
But he's our facilities guy, so he doesn't really go and bother the cats. And then the rest of the staff come in around 7:30. That's when we put out all the food for the ferals at night, right? The one before we leave. and then we come and clean up, and then we open up at 10 o'clock. So that's that's the main reason.
I love that the word sanctuary is in the title of your nonprofit. And I wanted to ask you about that. Like, how would you define a sanctuary for these animals? And like, how do you ensure that as you're bringing visitors in, like the cats still have their space respected, that they're being treated the way you and your staff would want them to be treated?
So we have ambassadors.
Okay.
And so these guys, when people come in, they have to sign up and let us know that, where they're from. And if they want to register their email with us, they can. And we send out a e-newsletter every quarter. But from there, we give a tour of our whole sanctuary. And we go over ground rules and whatnot. Even with the treats, we recommend, and we limit the treats, right? Okay. So, because it's like eating French fries all day, right, for cats. So we give them each a very small bag. People are more than welcome to bring their own treats, but we recommend that they don't, because we try to keep the same temptations, right? Just what we give out, but we try to control how many treats these cats get. And we say, rather than using your hand, toss out the treat, right? Because cats have claws and cats are cats. And if they're feral or fractious, let the cat be the cat, right? And don't go chasing it. Yeah. Once in a while, we'll get a kid there, once in a blue moon, where the parent's not paying attention, the kid's trying to be friendly but a little too aggressive with the cat. Sure. And so then we just address it. By and large, though, it's such a mellow, serene place. People are more often taking naps, believe it or not. There's so many pictures of like people just taking a nap in the middle of the cat sanctuary. To the point where if we didn't think the cats would destroy it, we'd probably put up hammocks. We do have a place called the Kapuna Center. Okay. It's also our senior center. So these cats it's more like a hospice area, right? And so we have a different enclosure. Guests are welcome to go in there, but that area is a little bit more regulated because it's a hospice area. So we remove these older cats that need more critical care, put them into a smaller enclosure so our staff can monitor them closely, but also to get away from the hustle and bustle of all the other stuff. So we limit how many people can go in there at a time.
Gotcha. So like, what about like with COVID? Was that difficult for you all? Like, how did you survive COVID?
It was rough. I mean, because we were the number one attraction, and because the island only has 3,000 people, and we were the only island for a very, very long time that had 0 cases of COVID. And so as the executive director, I made a really difficult decision and decided to close our sanctuary to the visitors prior to any kind of government mandate or anything like that. And I knew that was going to impact our donations significantly, but I felt we have a responsibility, the Cat Sanctuary has a responsibility to keep our community safe. And if we're open and tourists are still flying in, that felt like an irresponsible thing to do.
Sure.
So we shut our doors down for like 3 months, and we did projects that that we never had time to get to. The cats actually kind of missed all the guests. It was pretty interesting. We thought they would be relieved. Couldn't be further from the truth. We actually felt that some of the cats were getting depressed because they would show up to the fence, right, and to the gate at 10 o'clock, and they would all be meowing. And like, where the hell is everybody? So, but then from a fundraising aspect of it, we shifted gears, and I hate using the word pivot, but we pivoted, and we created an online store for merchandise. We did yoga with cats on Facebook.
I saw that. That looked fun.
Yeah, that was before we had internet. That was on a good sunny day with barely a cell signal. But yeah, we raised quite a bit doing that. And then we created this campaign. So I've been reading on the newspaper at the time how the price of the average medium home in Hawaii was over $1 million. And so I said, wow, and they're like, oh yeah, people from California are moving to Hawaii now that everybody's working remotely and they're buying houses and whatnot. I'm like, I wonder if I could make a fundraising campaign out of this. And so I created a real estate ad and I called it Rent a Piece of Paradise. And so we have, so we have these cat houses that we get off of Amazon, and we put it on our wish list, and some people buy it for us and what have you. So I created this real estate ad, and I said, basically, you could rent a piece of paradise for $495 a year, and we could put your name on the cat house. And it was a 2 square foot, 1 bedroom. I mean, I totally made it really cheesy and all that. And I was like, look, if we get 10 of these, I'm happy. Well, the first year we sold 120 of them.
Wow.
That was a huge hit. So it was kind of cool that people, could see it. And what we do is we get the cat house, we get the sign, and we'd send them a picture of it afterwards with cats in it and whatnot. And it was cool that the people just love being able to see their name on it, and knowing that it went to go help the cats. And so now this is our second year. And so it's only good for a year, right? The $495. So then I sent a cheesy lease renewal and people renewed. It's about 75% renewed.
Wow. What takeaways for other agencies, like specific to this model, do you have, if any, or about just takeaways about conflict versus coexistence with the other sentient beings who are here with us?
Here's the thing. Most people in our world, in our industry, want me to write about how difficult it is because of our cat sanctuary, everybody is getting pressured. There's a lot of shelters, a lot of organizations getting pressured. Why don't you build something like Lanai Cat Sanctuary? And so my colleagues come back and say, hey, can you write about it and tell everybody how difficult it is and not to do it? I said, no, I'm not going to write a negative article, but I will write a reality. I mean, one that sets in reality. I think it's important to know that Kathy started with 25 cats, right? And in 2009, she had 100. In 2014, she had 350. Now in 2022, we have 660. It all took time.
Yeah.
She started off with $10,000 that she raised. When I started in 2014, I told you we only had 3 staff and they were working part-time and barely making ends meet. Now we're in a comfortable place where we can pay our staff well. You just got to stay within your means. Nothing, forget cat sanctuaries, nothing, in my opinion, would get accomplished in life if we didn't try and if we didn't step outside of the box and say, why can't we do it? Or what can we do to try this? Now, do I think we could get a Lanai Cat Sanctuary, turn it into a manual and give it to somebody and say, here, go build it? Absolutely not. I think the Lanai Cat Sanctuary is good for its community and for what's going on here. But do I think there can be a version of the cat sanctuary? Yes, in every single community. But every different version will have to adapt to the community that it's in. And so it took me years, literally years, to talk to conservationists. And a lot of conservationists still don't believe in what we do, right? They feel it's not sustainable or whatnot. I'm not trying to solve, in a perfect world, there would be no feral cats on this island and I'd be out of a job, right? The reality is the cats are still reproducing out there. We bring in as many as we can within our means. We are making a huge difference though. There are cats that have not been trapped in these bird sensitive areas for the last 2 years, but it's a multifaceted approach, right? This is a complicated issue. If it was so easy, it wouldn't be an issue. It's just a matter of sitting down and talking to conservationists, talking to the cat people, and figuring out how can we meet together to try something different. Because what's going on right now in most, not on Lanai, but everywhere else, everybody's just too busy arguing and defending their side. And I just feel like you're not going to get anywhere.
People who read the article, like, how would you like them to support you? We can definitely hyperlink to your website and then the sponsorship page and things like that. But
yeah, I think, probably the Rent a Piece of Paradise is cool. The Adopt in Place in our social media, if they just want to give a general donation on our website, it shows like, I don't know, $25 will get you, for a cost a cup of coffee, I forget what I put, will feed 25 cats or something like that.
okay.
So there's all these different denominations, but
Else that I haven't asked you that you would just like to highlight in our last couple minutes together?
I'm conflicted between, I get a lot of calls, probably 4 to 6 calls a week on, hey, I want to build a cat sanctuary just like yours. How did you do it? I would encourage people to team up with, if they're individuals that are wanting to start a cat sanctuary, rather than doing that, unless you have a lot of ambition, a lot of patience, and know that it's going to take years, why not team up with a local rescue or humane society who may have a lot more resources than you, and then create a program and start small.
Sure.
Learn from your mistakes. We learn every day, right? So just don't give up.
Connecting with the Lanai Cat Sanctuary really inspired me because it shows that even when faced with a seemingly insurmountable challenge, people who choose compassion can forge a successful path forward. You can find links to connect with and support the Lanai Cat Sanctuary in the show notes. Thank you so much for taking the time to travel with me today. May any words or wisdom that resonated stay with you and grow in the upcoming days. Till next time, stay wild and rooted in compassion.